Next friends, here the clarity point that should be there in your mind is, when we use the word accumulated profits, it also includes the capitalized profits. Write down note 2. Accumulated profits include capitalized profits also. Includes capitalized profits also. See, when we say release of assets, it could be either in cash or it could also be in kind. When if it is given in kind, then the market value of that particular asset you should see. See, here there is a small illustration for us to understand that particular provision. R Limited has accumulated profits of 3 lakhs. Excluding the capitalized profits, that is bonus shares of 1 lakh issued in the past. Company distributed assets of rupees 2,50,000 to its shareholders. Compute the amount that is taxable in case if the market value of those assets, situation 1 2 lakhs, situation 2 3 lakhs, situation 3 4 lakhs, situation 4 4,50,000. What we say, we have to take the market value. Once assets are distributed and that is being distributed in kind, not in cash, then market value of that particular asset 2 lakhs. In first case, what is the deemed dividend? 2 lakhs. In second case, what is the deemed dividend? 3,50,000. There are profits only to the extent of 3 lakhs, sir, but you should also include the bonus shares also. Bonus shares are 2,50,000. 3 plus 2,50,000 is what? 5,50,000. 3 plus 1 lakh. 1 lakh is the bonus shares. 3 plus 1 is equal to 4. So to the extent of the accumulated profits, market value of these assets distributed will be deemed to be dividends. So if the market value of the asset happens to be 4 lakhs, 4 lakhs tak aap deemed dividend mante. If the market value is 4,50,000, here the accumulated profits are only 4 lakhs. So to the extent of the accumulated profits only, it shall be deemed to be the dividends. Then friends, write down next, section 222B. Section 222B. Distribution of debentures oblique deposit certificates to the shareholders and a bonus to the preference shareholders and bonus shares to the preference shareholders. Of course, it shall be deemed to be the dividend only to the extent of the accumulated profits. Only to the extent of the accumulated profits only is the point that you have to remember in all these sections. And that accumulated profits includes the bonus shares issued to the equity capitalized profits. Then friends, section 222C. Section 222C. That is distribution to the shareholders. Distribution to the shareholders on liquidation of company. On liquidation of company. At this juncture, let me again revise the point which we have studied there in the topic of capital gains. When company goes into liquidation and distributes the capital assets to its shareholders, your 46(1) says what? It will not amount to transfer, consequently company is not liable to make the payment of any capital gains tax. But in the hands of the shareholders, your 46(2) says what? That is, shareholder is giving up his share and taking the assets. Isn't it or not? So it amounts to transfer and it is liable for the capital gains tax. How do you calculate the capital gains? What is the fair market value of the asset received minus deemed dividend minus cost of acquisition or indexed cost of acquisition of those shares. That will be called as a capital gain, and it will be, shareholder is liable for making the payment of tax on such capital gains. But there you will see in 46(2) how to calculate the capital gains. What is the fair market value of the asset minus deemed dividend minus cost of acquisition or indexed cost of acquisition. Why there minus deemed dividend? Because when the company is going into liquidation and gives the assets to the shareholders, and at that point of the time, if the company is having the accumulated profits, to that extent it shall be deemed to be the dividend. Who said so? 222C says so. Let us suppose I am the shareholder in a company. I purchase the shares with 5 lakh rupees. I am 20% shareholders, let us suppose. At the time of liquidation of the company, there is about 5 lakhs of the accumulated profits. So what is my share in that particular accumulated profit of 5 lakhs? 20% of 5 lakhs is 1 lakh. Now I received an asset whose market value is 10 lakhs. So how to calculate the capital gain? Fair market value 10 lakhs minus a deemed dividend of 1 lakh minus cost of acquisition of 5 lakhs. Then the 4 lakhs becomes the capital gain. So that is how, when company goes into liquidation, what is the tax implication? If somebody asks, you should touch the 3 points. From company's point of view, what is it? 46(1) says it is not a transfer, no capital gains. But at the time of distribution of such assets, if there are any accumulated profits, to the extent of the accumulated profits, it amounts to deemed dividend and company is required to pay the dividend distribution tax. From the shareholder's point of view, what it is? On deemed dividend covered by section 222C, since company is paying the dividend distribution tax, it is exempted in the hands of the shareholder under 10 clause 34. And then how to calculate the capital gains? Fair market value of the asset received minus deemed dividend minus cost of acquisition or indexed cost of acquisition of the shares is a point to be well remembered. Then friends, 222D. 222D. Any distribution to the shareholders, any distribution to the shareholders on reduction of share capital, to the extent to which company possess accumulated profits. Company possess accumulated profits. Of course, every rule has got an exception. Write note. That is, in case if reduction of share capital, is in accordance with is in accordance with Section 77A of Companies Act, is in accordance with Section 77A of the Companies Act, buyback, it shall not be treated as deemed dividend. It shall not be treated as deemed dividend. Then friends, we go by 222E, Section 222E. What is this Section 222E? It is loans and advances to certain shareholders or concerns. Before I get into that particular point, let me do with some example on the earlier clause 222D. How do we understand that? Look at, a company has accumulated profits of 3 lakhs. How much is the accumulated profits? 3 lakhs. X, a shareholder who holds 25% shares, receives 50,000 from the company on reduction of its capital. Then what is the liability of the company to make dividend distribution? Tax. For 25% shareholder, if you are giving 50,000 on reduction of the capital, that means 50,000 divided by 25 into 100 is how much? 2 lakhs. That means when you reduced the share capital, for a shareholder holding 25% of the share capital, you gave 50,000 rupees. That means whole reduction amounted to how much? Whole reduction amounted to 50,000 divided by 25 into 100 is equal to how much? 2 lakhs. What is your accumulated profits? 2 lakhs. Accumulated profits 3 lakhs. So happy well, up to 2 lakhs you have to pay the dividend distribution tax at the rate of 16.225. Now the point here is, let us suppose to a shareholder holding 25% of the shares, on reduction company is giving 75,000. Then 75,000 is for 25% means, what is for 100%? 3 lakhs. So on the entire 75,000, dividend distribution tax company need to pay. In a third situation, let us suppose to a 25% shareholder you are paying 2,40,000 on reduction of the share capital. Then what will happen? That is 2,40,000 if it represents for 25%, for the whole shareholders how much you have paid? 2,40,000 divided by 25 into 100, how much it is? More than 3 lakhs. Then how do you make the payment of dividend distribution tax? On the entire 3 lakhs, but from the point of view of this particular shareholder, on that entire 75,000 you require to pay the dividend distribution tax. So what is most important here to understand is, when there is a reduction in the share capital otherwise than by the buyback, if at that point of time there are accumulated profits to the extent of that particular share of the shareholder in that particular accumulated profits, dividend distribution tax company is liable to make the payments. Now I come to the 222E. What is it? Loans and advances given to certain shareholders, not all, to the shareholder holding 10% of the share capital, or to the concerns where such shareholder is having a substantial interest. Write down. Loans oblique advances. Loans oblique advances to certain shareholders oblique concerns. To certain shareholders oblique concerns. 222E. First thing that as a student you are supposed to understand is this provision is only applicable to the company in which public are not substantially interested. Point number 1, write down. This clause is applicable. This clause is applicable only to the companies, in which public are not substantially interested. Which public are not substantially interested. Friends, when we say 222E, to certain shareholders, who are those certain shareholders? This is applicable to shareholder who is the beneficial owner of the shares carrying 10% of the voting power. Write down. Payment or loan must be given to shareholder who happens to be the beneficial owner. Which shareholder? Equity shareholder who is a beneficial owner, of the shares holding not less than 10% of the voting power, holding not less than 10% of the voting power, or any concern in which above stated shareholder has a substantial interest, or any person, loan given to any person who is going to give benefit to the above stated shareholder, Friends, just now we used the word any concern where the shareholder is having substantial interest. What do you mean by substantial interest? If it is a company, when you say a person is having substantial interest, if he is the beneficial owner of shares carrying 20% of the voting power, or in any other concern, he is having a right to receive 20% of the profits of that particular concern is a point. Notwithstanding the fact that the loan is given for interest or interest free, this provision will get invoked. And another important thing is, loan is given and again it is also repaid. Still this particular provision will get attracted. Got the point? But one thing that appears to me very logical and equitable is, once you invoke this deeming fiction and make the company to pay the on such treat it as a deemed dividend, of course company is not liable to pay the dividend distribution tax. Once you deem this as a dividend and make the shareholders to offer it as an income, subsequently when really company declares the dividend, whatever the dividend covered by 222E is allowed to be reduced from that actual dividend subsequent date when the company makes the payment. Because on a deeming basis one time, on actual basis another time, government cannot get the tax. Once by invoking the deeming fiction, in case if you are deeming it as a dividend, then subsequently when dividends are really distributed by the company, then whatever the deemed dividend earlier, that is allowed to be reduced. Then friends, this 222E is not applicable in case if that particular company is basically engaged in the business of the money lending. Its primary business is money lending. That is another important point that you need to remember and make a note. Write down. Provisions of section 222E. Provisions of section 222E are not applicable if such company business is money lending, and in that ordinary course of money lending, the money is lent to that particular shareholder, then there is no problem. You have to prove it. Then write down next important point. Dividend paid at a subsequent date gets reduced by deemed dividend covered by section 222E. So point of interest here is one loan is given and it is deemed as a dividend. It got repaid and again loan is given to that fellow. Again and again can you invoke the deeming fiction? No. Loan can be deemed as a dividend only once, not repeatedly, is a point. Write down. Loan can be deemed dividend only once. Loan can be deemed dividend only once. Then friends, even if such loan got repaid, even if such loan got repaid, still the provisions of 222E are applicable. Still the provisions of 222E are applicable. So friends, these are the important aspects with respect to the dividend, and it is a very, very important area from the examination point of view. Now quickly I move to your winnings from lotteries and crossword puzzles, horse races and card games. In this context, let me tell you, this is a specifically made taxable under this particular head, and these incomes are subjected to a flat rate of taxation. What is the rate of tax? 30% is a rate of tax. And one more important thing is, against this income no deduction is permitted. So write down the point. Winnings from lotteries and crossword puzzles. Winnings from lotteries, comma, crossword puzzles, comma, horse races. Who said so that nothing is allowed to be deducted? Disallowances are being stated under section 58. So 58(4) says what? That is, no deduction in respect of any expenditure, no deduction in respect of any expenditure in connection with this income, will be allowed. Not only that, write down deductions under section 80C to 80U. Deductions under section 80C to 80U will also not be available. At this juncture, friends, try to understand. There will be agents for lottery tickets, and in case out of the unsold tickets, if some prize money comes, that will not be taxed under this particular head. It will be taxed under the head profits and gains from business and a profession. So write a small note. Income accruing to the agent, in respect of prices, on unsold oblique unclaimed tickets, is taxed under the head PGBP. Then friends, rate of tax 30% plus educational cess at 3%. Friends, try to understand, in your computation of total income, you have to write the gross amount, not net of TDS. How to calculate the gross amount? That amount, net amount divided by 100 minus 30 plus this surcharge, whole multiplied by 100. That gives you, what is it? Your gross income. That is, whatever the net amount divided by 100 minus 30 whole multiplied by 100 will give you the, what is it? The gross amount. Of course, one thing that you require to remember is TDS provisions with respect to the winnings from lotteries and crossword puzzles. If you carefully look at, if that amount is 10,000 rupees, does not exceed 10,000 rupees, then no TDS. Of course, in case of horse races, 5,000. Up to that, no TDS. Then if it is below that amount, the entire amount itself is a gross amount. There is no need to again gross it up. That grossing up comes only when the income exceeding that 10,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees. Earlier it used to be 5,000 and 2,500. Now they doubled it. Against the casual incomes of this sort of winnings from lotteries and crossword puzzles and all, up to 10,000 no TDS. For horse races, up to 5,000 no TDS is a point. Anyhow, we are going to do very clearly there in the topic of the TDS. And one noteworthy point, let us suppose my Chakravarti, individual, male, below 65 years. In case if he don't have any other income or his other incomes are less than the basic exemption limit, the unexhausted portion of the basic exemption limit can be well adjusted against the long-term capital gain which are subjected to a flat rate of taxation. Is such kind of the facility is also there against the winnings from lotteries and crossword puzzles? Unfortunately, the answer is no. That is not available. Because generally our feeling is what? Feeling is unexhausted portion of the basic exemption limit can be well adjusted against the incomes which are subjected to the, what is it, flat rate of tax. But that principle is not applicable against the winnings from lotteries and crossword puzzles. Write down the point. That is, unexhausted portion of basic exemption limit, unexhausted portion of the basic exemption limit cannot be adjusted against, winnings from lotteries, cannot be adjusted against the winnings from lotteries. Then friends, I move to the next income called as interest on securities. As far as interest on security is concerned, what the chargeability says. See, this could be taxed here or there. Here under the head income from other sources, or there under the head profits and gains from business and profession. When you will tax it under the profits and gains from business and profession, if your main business is making the investments. But if your investments are being made and those investments are capital assets, and if you are getting interest income, then it should be taxed under the head income from other sources as a point. So when we say interest on securities, securities issued by the central government, state government, debentures and bonds issued by the local authority, debentures and bonds issued by the companies, debentures and bonds issued by the corporations established under the central act or the state act or the provincial act. What is the chargeability of interest? Of course friends, either on receipt basis or on a due basis depending upon the system of accounting. Because method of accounting is applicable to the head called as income from other sources. If SSE goes by cash system on receipt, if he goes by mercantile system on accrual. Friends, try to understand accrual of the income happens on, what is it? On a particular date. Generally companies will be paying the interest twice in a year. Because interest on securities in case of the companies, it is not accrual being done on a day-to-day basis, but on a specific day is what you have to understand. At this juncture, we should also read one peculiar section called as 94(1). What is this 94(1)? See, 94 is also being brought into the income tax law because people are trying to defeat the purposive intents of the law. What is happening? Let us suppose I am having debentures in a particular company. Already my income exceeded 8 lakhs. Krishna Reddy is my student who don't have income. Now just before the due date for that particular interest, I transfer these debentures to Krishna Reddy and subsequently will get those debentures retransferred to me. Thereby what will happen? On the due date, he will be the person who is holding that particular debenture. He will be receiving the income, and since he don't have any other incomes, that income is not getting subjected to the tax, and subsequently coolly I am bringing back those debentures after the receipt of that particular interest. You are temporarily parking these debentures in the name of the person who has got no income or lesser income. Thereby you are trying to either avoid the payment of tax or reduce your tax burden. So what the law says, if sale and buyback of these securities on which interest arises, in case if it is taking place, then such interest will not be taxed in the hands of the transferee, it will be taxed in the hands of the transferor. But friends, please do remember, in case if the owner who transferred these securities, if he is going to prove that there is actually no avoidance of the tax, that means already my income is also more than 8 lakhs, Krishna Reddy income is also more than 8 lakhs, just for the purpose because I am in need of money, I transferred this. Actually there is no avoidance of the tax, or intention is not there, or the avoidance of the income tax is only exceptional and it is not being done or carried out systematically, and there is no occasion in the preceding 3 years also that I did like that. So you have to prove that you are a genuine man or a genuine SSC. I don't have that intention. Right? I took a stick and beaten Mr. Krishna Reddy. When Mr. Krishna Reddy is weeping, I am going to Krishna Reddy and I told Krishna Reddy that, Krishna Reddy, I am not in proper state of mind. Otherwise, I love you so much. I will never beat you. Why I will beat you? Because I am completely out of state of mind and there is a stick and to my eyes you are not appearing like a Krishna Reddy. That made me to hit. It is not my intention. Krishna Reddy is still weeping. Then I told Krishna Reddy, our relationship is what? Principal and article. Already you are about to complete your articles. In the last 3 years, at any time, whether I did like that? No. Only this is a situation, it has happened, not systematically planned, and it is exceptional in nature. It's not ultimately, दोस्तों आप ये स्टोरी को दिमाग में रख के प्रोविजन को छोड़ दो, वो बात नहीं. प्रोविजन क्या है? जनरली if a security is transferred before the due date and again got retransferred, sale and again buyback, and there the intention is only to park the interest to the people who don't have the income, or in whose hands if this income reaches is going to be taxed at a lower rate, then 94(1) can be very well be invoked and such interest income will be taxable in the hands of the transferor is a point. Unless and otherwise transferor proves that there is no avoidance of the tax, or otherwise avoidance of the income tax was exceptional and there was no avoidance of income tax by such transaction or like such transactions in the past 3 preceding years. So this is what your 94(1). Of course, in the problem, if net of TDS the interest is given, then that net interest amount is to be divided with 100 minus TDS rate. whole multiplied by 100 will give you the gross amount as a point. What is the TDS on securities? 10%. Then friends, deduction for expenses from interest on securities. If you are borrowing the money and investing in security, whatever the interest that you are paying, such a interest will be allowed as a deduction. Similarly, any expenses like collection charges and all, whatever you make the payment, that also will be allowed as a deduction. 94.1, hopefully, I think if you write down and keep it in the mind, that will be helpful to you, because that is one important section from the examination point of view. Write down friends, section 94.1. What is it? Sale and buyback of securities. Sale and buyback of securities. That is, make it side heading. Interest on securities becomes due on specific dates. Becomes due on specific dates and is treated as income, of the person who owns the security, on the due date. Therefore, if the owner of any security, sells the securities just before the due date, and shifts the burden to others, then later on buy back those securities, then interest would be deemed to be the income of the transferor. Note, 94.1 is not applicable. If the SSC proves that A, there has been no avoidance of income tax, and there were no such transactions in the 3 preceding years, in the 3 preceding years, and this transaction is exceptional in nature. This transaction is exceptional in the nature. Then friends, few of the provisions I quickly do with, like income from letting out of the machinery, plant and furniture, unless that income gets taxed under the head profits and gains from business and profession, it gets taxed under the head income from other sources. And in case if letting of the machinery, plant and furniture happens with along with the building, and it is a composite rent and it is inseparable, then such composite rent also becomes taxable under the head income from other sources. What are the deductions that are available? Current repairs, insurance premium, and then depreciation and any other expenditure not being of the capital nature, which is spent exclusively and wholly for the purpose of earning this income, will be allowed as a deduction. Then family pension, friends, family pension also falls under this particular head because the relationship of employer and employee is not there. And what is the deduction prescribed by 57 is 33.33% of such pension amount or rupees 15,000. Whichever is less will be allowed as a deduction. Similarly, contribution received from the employees towards their welfare funds and all, it shall be first treated as an income and subsequently if it is paid within the due date under the respective act will be allowed as a deduction. Then before moving to the gift taxation, let me also finish off with the remaining things so that I will be left with gift taxation. Interest on compensation or enhanced compensation will be taxable under this head, and a deduction to the tune of 50% of such interest on compensation or enhanced compensation will be allowed as a deduction. I am not making you to write, but please do remember. Then friends, we have good number of case laws on interest income, whether it's a business income or the income from other sources. And this issue also I will take up after the completion of our gift taxation. And before I move to the gift taxation, let me also conclude with the 58. What is 58? What is not deductible under the head income from other sources? One is if the expense is of a personal nature or of a capital expenditure, and then interest paid outside India without deducting the tax at source, salaries paid outside India without deducting the tax at source, and similarly if payments are made to the relatives in excess of a reasonable amount. Similarly, income tax and wealth tax being personal taxes, these will not be allowed to be deducted. Similarly, no expenditure is allowed to be deducted against winnings from lotteries and crossword puzzles. Then friends, deemed income by section 59, it is similar to section 41. Here also under the head income from other sources, we have what is it, any expenditure or loss which is allowed earlier, in case if it is going to get reimbursed or indemnified, then that will become deemed income in the year of receipt, and it will be taxable in the hands of the person who receives it under the head income from other sources. So broadly these are the provisions. Now in the session to follow, I make a discussion in detail of the gift taxation and interest and related case laws. And finally, we have to do with the previous suggested answers.